everybody. Welcome to another episode of What a Hell of a Way to Die. It's a dad chat with me and Nate. Nate is back in the podcasting chair. And it's been a minute since we've been able to dad chat, Nate. So is the kid like 4 years old now or something? Or like, trust me, it seems like that happens. You'll blink and then suddenly she'll be 5.
It's weird because she just turned 8 months old. So coming up on almost to the point of being out as long as she was in. But you know, she's doing some motions that seem like the precursors to crawling. She can absolutely roll. She just chooses not to. But sometimes when she's being dramatic in her crib, she fully does like practically somersault rolls. So I know she can. It probably takes after her mom that she simply will find a way to not do a thing she doesn't want to do. Which is good. I don't want her to be like me and be like, I don't want to do this, so I'm going to make myself do it and suffer all the time.
It's that right. It seems like she's finding the happy medium of like, I don't want to do it. I'll do it, but I'm going to bitch and moan about it the entire time. So congratulations, you've created an enlisted soldier.
Yeah. Well, you know, I've made the joke before that her mom would have been a better army officer than me, but she absolutely would have been like the world's greatest supply sergeant. So, you know, respect to that. I would say she's got like kind of toddler vibes, toddler attitude is starting to show up. I mean, like I said, she's not crawling. She doesn't have any teeth yet, but you're getting way more expressive things. You can play peekaboo. She loves peekaboo now. She's a lot more aware of your presence in the room or when you leave. You know, she loves grabbing stuff. She loves grabbing like her phones, watches, whatever. I've sat her down before. I'll actually send you a photo really fast, Francis, and you can look at it on your phone. But it's really funny because sometimes one of the activities I can do with her when she, you know, because I can't work obviously when I'm taking care of her. Like she requires too much attention, which is fine. I mean, I wasn't expecting that to be the case. But one thing I can do is I can plop her down on the couch and I can play piano and sing to her. And this is an example of what she kind of looks like now, which I obviously don't share photos of my kid online, but to describe the photo, she is seated holding the TV remote and basically looking like, okay, when is the entertainment going to start?
God.
You can see how big she's gotten.
Yeah, and talk about, like, you know, they always said the redhead gene was recessive, but damn, she is.
No, it's weird because to me, she looks just like Cynthia in terms of her facial features, her eyes, her smile, her nose, her ears, her hairline, everything. She's got a complexion closer to mine, but she absolutely has my hair. And in fact, she has my hair. I think I've shared it in our group chat before. She has my hair to an extent that it's just one unbroken mass of the same hair when I hold her. Like I just sent you a photo I took this weekend, Francis. You can see it. Like we have the same hair,
exactly the same hair,
same color, same. Hers is finer than mine, obviously, which makes sense. You know, I'm older, but it's the same curls and everything. And the curls weren't apparent; they kind of started to pop out a little bit recently. And once that started happening, it was like, oh my god, she got just my hair, like
just your hair.
and it's weird too because I mean, okay, it's definitely I'll see some facial expressions that are just me. But I think I've said this on the podcast before, but I noticed it this morning when I was dropping her off. There's a little boy at her nursery who is probably about, 13, 14 months old, maybe a little older than that. And he's got bright red hair and blue eyes. Like he's actually like a brighter red head than I was, or he's about to where I was as a very small child when I see photos. And my hair color changed over my lifetime. It got darker. And it also got like kind of coarser and wirier, especially when we lived in New Mexico before I was like 9 when we moved, 8 or 9 when we moved there. In dry air, my hair was just flat. I have a photo of me at Christmas when I was 10 and I look like Danny Bonaducci from the Partridge Family, like full on, just hair to my shoulders, straight, no curls at all, red hair. So and it was brighter than my hair is now. So she's got me circa almost 40 years old hair. Which is ridiculous. But it's cute. But it's ridiculous.
Color-wise, not coarse white. Like she still has that nice soft baby hair.
Very much so, and color-wise, but also the curliness and the way it curls. Mm-hmm. It's exactly the same as mine, and that's the thing that I think is the most disconcerting. Is just like holding her up and being like, there's not really any differentiation when I hold her close enough to me that our hair is touching. It just looks like the same. So she's got
a big old head too.
Well, that's also because she's a baby. And
I forget. It's been so long since I've seen like, a child under 1. You forget that the proportions are all weird because they're still kind of like the rest of them is growing into it as well.
It's very funny too when she's like seated in her high chair because either when she's excited or she's mad, she starts like waving her arms and being mad. And it's like, it just looks like a little tiny tin pot dictator because like her arms are so small relative to her head. Like everything about her is, she's getting to the point now where she's approaching the age at which the proportion of her head will be the most ridiculous that it's going to be in her lifetime. And also like the size of her eyes relative to her face is the largest they'll be in her lifetime. Right. And so it's like, they wind up just being these sort of like cherubic little aliens. And obviously I see all the babies and toddlers at nursery when I drop her off and like sometimes get random hugs from these little toddlers. They're adorable, but it's just very funny how ridiculous their proportions are. Yeah. Also how much they notice as soon as a new grown-up walks in, how much every single one of them is paying attention to you and looking at you, maybe saying hi, like they're so perceptive. Mm-hmm. And she's perceptive. I mean, our baby's perceptive. I notice this stuff. Like, I know I'm in for it so bad. She's going to be just like her mom. She's going to notice everything. She's going to figure out immediately how to manipulate me into getting what she wants.
I know. My wife and I are always having the argument of, she keeps telling me, she's like, you got to stop doing things for the kid. She's 9. She's almost 9. Mm-hmm. She's like, she can do things. She can unload the dishwasher. She can fold her own laundry. And I get trapped in the like, well, it's just going to be a lot faster for me to do it. And I don't want to have the argument, but my wife's just like, no, when you're out of town or when you're away at work or something, she does not complain about having to do work. She complains when you make her do work because you don't make her do work. So I have to make her do work. It's a difficult thing because I'm the person that takes care of everything at the house. I do most of the cooking. I do a lot of the cleaning. Like I do a lot of domestic stuff in the house. So like and I do all these things for my wife too. My wife's never just like, you got to stop, refilling her water cup for her just because you're in the kitchen. But also, here, can you fill my water bottle for me? And I just have that just like, well, you can get up and walk around here to the sink too. But I guess I'm being a nice husband, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, recently it's been a bit of a challenge, for me to kind of keep abreast, take stock of everything that needs to be done because I've just got so many kind of deadlines, things with work and stuff's been perhaps a little bit more complicated or busy than before. And, Cynthia she's amazing at keeping stuff organized and I'm really grateful. But I also sometimes feel like I'm not stepping in and doing enough. And I even said that to her, like, if you need something and like, even if I can't do it right now, if you just tell me, I will do it. And she made the point that she's like, right, but sometimes I'm already up, I'm already in the kitchen. Like, I'm so tired. If I sit down, I'm going to fall asleep. It's just easier to stay moving and get stuff done. But one thing I've been trying to do is to slowly transition towards getting up earlier than before, like closer to 6 than to 7, so that I can get her ready for nursery and dropped off and get on my bike in time to be in before 9. Because if I do that, then I can leave before 5 and I can get home around the time Cynthia's going to bring her back from nursery. And that means I can do stuff like make dinner and help with making bottles and doing dishes and taking out trash and all that shit. It's not hard, but it's just chores,
Yeah.
And that's the thing, because in the past I used to stay a lot later. Before she was born, I used to stay a lot later. And I'd go in typically a little later too. I'd wake up later. And now obviously I have to get up early because we have a baby. I don't know if you and I had recorded when she got this like stomach bug. I think we'd missed it because we had stuff scheduled.
Yeah, it's been about a month since we've recorded together. So there's probably a lot of stuff. And I know that she's been kind of up and down sick back and forth because, every child at the nursery is a plague demon.
She's actually doing pretty well so far since she got back from this last one. But this last one was a Wednesday night. She started throwing up and she didn't make it to nursery for the rest of the week or all of the next week. Ooh. So obviously, because you can't drop her off at nursery if she has vomited or had diarrhea within 48 hours. Mm-hmm. And the following Friday night was the first time she ever got to the point where it had been more than 48 hours since I had 48 hours. And so obviously, like, I got stuff done. I managed to meet my deadlines. But when you've got a sick kid, a sick baby, and you both work from home, you're both working full time, you know this, but many listeners who don't have kids may not. You just simply can't work except when the baby's napping. And when the baby's napping, that's like when you can get any life maintenance, chores, etc. done. And also, they don't really want to nap when they're sick. No. So really, what you can do is survive until they go to bed for the night and hopefully don't throw up in the middle of the night on themselves like she was doing. And then that's your get work done time. It was fucking hard. And I'll be honest with you, I'm pretty good under pressure. I find that I'm probably leaning more towards being an anxious person until there's a crisis, and then I'm solid.
Right. I have that same thing. Like once Same thing with, at work. I'll just kind of be floating around like I don't know what to do, but as soon as there's an emergency, something breaks, your brain like, oh, I know what to do in these situations, and that really helps out.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that there was one night where we were downstairs, we thought she was asleep, and then we heard the sound through the baby monitor of the telltale she's gonna throw up sound. And so we both rushed into the nursery. We picked her up, and I threw a big towel on the floor, and Cynthia held her, and she threw up, and she had probably 2 or 3 good bits of throwing up. And I was just holding and wiping, and Cynthia was holding her and stuff. Like I was, she was holding the baby. I was making sure it got caught in the towels, wiping up stuff. And like, that's the closest to like 1,000-yard stare I've had in a while. And it wasn't that I was like psychologically traumatized. It's just, I was so exhausted, and like, it's just pure stress response. And it's weird to me. Like it makes some things make sense sometimes, that those moments are when I feel like real clarity, because like I can just you just react to exactly what is happening in this moment, and prelude or aftermath doesn't really matter. It's just getting through this moment. And then once things calm down, that's when I'm like either a nervous wreck or just sort of exhausted and sort of like general anhedonia state that it's hard to get out of. That's working on it, but it's been a challenge. It's really been a challenge. So much stress this year, man.
It does get better as the kid gets older, but I will say like I said, our daughter is going to be 9 in July, and it's still, as 2 people who work from home, it's near impossible to get work done sometimes when she's awake, because she gets into, she has ADHD, and she's a touch on the spectrum, so she'll get into something really big, and you'll be like, okay, look, when you sit down, here's what we're going to do today. We're going to do this, that, and the other thing. And it all goes right over her head because she wants to talk about Transformers with you. Sure. And what is it? Recently, it's been some TV show called Bots, but like it just rotates so much. Like I'll just wake up and she'll be like, no, it's just Pokemon for the next 72 hours. That's what we're doing is Pokemon. And we're going to talk about Pokemon. She's got a big Pokemon encyclopedia. She's going to talk to me about Pokemon. And look, I play Pokemon, but I'm an original 151. I don't know all these new Pokemans, whatever they are. I sounding real 40.
Pokemans is like the thing you do to specifically annoy kids and make them feel disrespected, because you're just like you're sort of 90s boomers. You know what I mean?
Pokemon came out in like 1996, I think. Like it's been around forever.
It's also stuff that I was too old for. By the time that Pokemon came out, my friends, like little brothers who were like 9-10 years old when we were in 6th grade, they were unironically into it, and that was the right age. But I was already into like JRPGs when I was 11 and 12.
You're into the fancy stuff. It literally is a JRPG.
I know, but it's so obviously a kid's thing, though. I'm talking playing like I was into the Final Fantasy games. I was into Chrono Trigger. I was into like Secret of Mana, stuff like that, like Square Enix games, things like that. And then obviously like your garden, like Mario RPG. I don't know if you've ever played that on.
Yeah, I played that and the Paper Mario ones too. Those
Super
were also
Nintendo. It wasn't on N64. It was on Super Nintendo. That Mario RPG, legit good game, genuinely great game. And then obviously like the PlayStation and N64 ones. There actually weren't very many good RPGs on N64 unless you count Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time, which I just never really got into. It was just too annoying for me. I don't know. Like my relationship with gaming started to change around that age, and the only thing that actually got me back into it was Metal Gear Solid.
Yeah.
And then Grand Theft Auto, like, which, you can chart what my life trajectory was, what my sort of life milestones were, based on the fact that I was basically trending away from gaming until this big dumb milestone came out in like 1998. And then subsequently GTA 3 came out in 2001, because it was right after 9/11 and everyone was mad at the game where you blow shit up and kill people.
But you can barely fly an airplane in that.
I don't think you can fly an airplane. I mean,
you can. There's that stubby little airplane that like you can kind of get to.
Yeah, but you can't really. You can't do real 9/11. You can just do like the tax protest 9/11 thing where the guy just killed himself.
Right. You can only fly a Cessna into the IRS building and kill yourself and nobody else. Yeah,
I mentioned this on basically every show because it was a funny little thing that Riley mentioned until I went and watched it. So a friend of ours, Tom Walker, is an Australian comedian. And he does a lot of Twitch streaming. And one of the streams he's recently been doing is playing GTA 4 with a mod that increases the speed of every vehicle to like 9999. So full max speed at all times on every vehicle, which means cars are just crashing and exploding everywhere. And you cannot cross the street without risk of being immediately killed. And there's something about trying to play the game with this that creates just the funniest comic timing I've ever seen in my life. Like Tom will go through over and over and over and over again, and finally at a point, it's like all I have to do is cross the street this one time, and I will be able to get to my next milestone, and then immediately get killed crossing the street. Like it's genuine. I don't know what it is, but I mentioned this on the episode of Lines I recorded today too, that like Cynthia's not really anyone who likes gaming or gaming streams or anything. She doesn't watch Twitch streams at all. But I was just like, genuinely just watch and tell me if I'm crazy or is this actually funny? And she's like, this is genuinely hilarious. So I'm still susceptible to the siren song of gaming, just a little bit, you know?
I feel you on that too. Like and my kid really, she likes to play video games. She's kind of into Super Smash Brothers. The only thing that I can really get her to play is Mario Party on like any regularity, and even that, she's like, after a half hour, she's like, I'm bored with this. I don't want to do it anymore. So, and my wife keeps saying like, oh well, there's all these like esports teams. Our YMCA has esports. The Science Center has esports. It's like, I don't like this child is like when she plays Mario Odyssey. I don't know if you've played it, but
no, I haven't.
Mario Odyssey has all these different, it's a Mario game. It's got different levels, but there's one level that is just it's called the Metro Kingdom, and it's a big like high-rise city. And she only plays that one because there's no enemies in it, like, or you have to really like search out enemies, because as soon as like a Goomba comes by, she's like, Dad, I need you to take care of this. It's like, you are almost 9 years old. I know that you can jump on top of a Goomba and kill it all on your own. You don't need me, but
it doesn't understand really that there's times when there's games like real-time strategy games that also have a sort of like economic build up your economic base component, that I think I like the city building part more than the fighting off the enemy hordes part. I mean, it can get boring though, because I did really like City Skylines for a while, and then after a while playing, I was just like, this just kind of feels a little bit repetitive. I think I'm bored. And then for some reason, some of my the mods that I got all got broken by an update, and none of my saved games would ever open ever again without completely crashing and being unplayable. And so I just kind of gave up. I haven't even tried City Skylines 2. It's a fun game. It's just it's like SimCity on steroids. But I don't know, that I guess I like that more than sort of like, I don't think I've like sought out a 3D shooter to play in forever.
Yeah, it's hard to find, when you become a dad, especially a dad to a small kid. It's hard to find that time for your gaming stuff, because like you need like an hour, right? Like to do anything in a video game, you need an hour. I will say though, my daughter did really get into Monkey Island. I don't know if you ever played those.
I remember Monkey. I mean, it's the old. Was it like
point and click? It was LucasArts.
I was gonna say, yeah, it wasn't Sierra, it was LucasArts. Yeah. I did. It was good. Yeah. I remember that game.
I played a lot. I played a lot of it, and I have it. I bought like the remastered version on Xbox, and
I had a neighbor in Germany who was playing that like on an Amiga, because Amigas were really popular in Europe back then.
Yeah, I played the shit out of all the Monkey Island games. Like those were I really loved all the LucasArts point and click adventure games. That's what. Yeah. Well, a lot of the people were playing. A lot of people played a lot of Sierra stuff. As you mentioned, a lot of JRPGs, Chrono Trigger, and things like that. I was really into all the LucasArts stuff. I played everything LucasArts that I could.
I played Sierra games too. I remember hilariously, I can recall, because we had an old Tandy computer when I was a little kid. And it wasn't until we moved back to America that my parents got like a more modern PC. So that would have been, I mean, it's all relative when you're a kid. Like it seems like it must be an ancient thing, but it was probably only 7 or 8 years old. But when you think about how much computers changed between, let's say, 1986 and 1993, obviously that old Tandy computer was pretty useless in the modern day, in the sense that like you couldn't run Windows on it. If it had the ability to do a modem, it would have been really complicated. You had to use a Microsoft DOS boot disk to turn it on. Like it wouldn't boot on its own. It didn't have a hard drive. To play games, they used 5 1/4 floppy disks, like actual floppity disks. You'd put it in, you'd start it up, and then once you had the DOS prompt, you'd then put a game you wanted to play that was on a disk in the other disk drive, and go to that drive and then run that game. So like H5, I learned how to, doing
the change
dir/p, run blah blah blah.exe, that kind of thing. So now when I do this stuff for network shit, the people at Trash Future at the studio think that I'm like tapping into the Matrix. And I'm just like,
No.
we didn't have Windows. If you were going to use a computer, this is what you had to do back then.
Yeah,
And it hasn't
DOS
changed.
is a Windows. DOS is a disk operating system. That's what it stands for.
Yeah, exactly. So I remember using Windows 3.1 and being blown away by how easy it was.
Yeah, just click on stuff.
Yeah, well, that was later. But once we got that computer that had Windows 3.1, because in the olden days we had like the Black Cauldron game and I think a couple of the other really old Sierra games. But I definitely remember the Black Cauldron. It was not easy as a kid's computer game. And we might have had like King's Quest, the first King's Quest. I can't remember.
I played some King's Quest.
Hilariously, you jogged my memory that part of the legacy of Sierra that doesn't really get talked about very much is that they made like erotic games in the early 80s. Like,
yes, they did. Yes.
Like sex text games and
strip poker.
Yeah. And there were some on Amiga as well. Cause I remember my friend's older brother had this game called Party Games that was just like 4-color Commodore, whatever fucking old port games on it they could play on an Amiga that were like sex themed, but they just seemed like, you know, when you're 7 or 8, you have no concept of what that actually means. It's just funny. Cause it's like, you know, it's
naked people are
naked
funny.
people are funny. And it's like, oh, those naked people are sleeping in the same bed, and you have to like shake the bed to make it rock for something. I'm like,
to make them wake up.
I had no idea what any of that meant. Yeah. So, but it's just,
sex games have fallen off. We don't have any good Leisure Suit Larrys anymore.
No more Leisure Suit Larry, man. I played the hell out of Leisure Suit down the line, like not the original ones, but my parents were just okay with it. Got us some of the Leisure Suit Larry, like the later ones, like the mid 90s Windows 3.1 Sierra games, and so. There was also a reboot, like a more than 16 color reboot of the first Leisure Suit Larry, and we did get that where like you have to go down to the store and they ask you like 18 different variables of what kind of condom you want, and then once you do, then the guy announces it to the store and everyone pops out and says what a pervert and stuff like that. Like, yeah, it's such a stupid game.
It is. It's incredibly dumb, but in the 1980s, that's what you had to jerk off to.
Yeah, that was or like the first Police Academy, where like if you don't PMCS your car every single time, you die.
It'll fall apart.
You really die. Yeah.
It's funny, but I mean, the St. Louis Police Department's going through that right now with our SUVs. We can't stop crashing them into shit.
Yeah, I've heard. I mean, yeah, I was thinking about with gaming. I mean, because I definitely played King's Quest 6. What was it? King's Quest. The one with like Alexander or whatever that has like all of the voiceover narrative. I think that's King's Quest 6. Because 7 was the one that got kind of like cartoony, I think. 6 was the one where you had to fight the fucking Minotaur. Yeah,
when I had an old girlfriend that she and I played that game together just because the voice acting on it was so like the main character would constantly be going, egads.
Yeah, I played Gabriel Knight, the first one. But then Sierra went really hard into full motion video. So like the games would be like 7 CDs. And they suck too. Like Gabriel Knight 2 was kind of boring and not great, and lots of full motion video. Phantasmagoria, awful game.
But you know, LucasArts did FMV really well because in the 90s there's this glorious period where they're like, we can't do live action video games, but we can do live action cutscenes.
Well, that's what I mean. That's what the Phantasmagoria and Gabriel Knight 2 and stuff were. It was basically like more or less looked like photo frame, but pixelated art where you clicked and stuff as point and click, and then basically every action you committed to had an FMV sequence.
Yeah.
And it was really annoying to play.
Yeah, because you can't skip that shit.
No, and it's like, I think you understand now why like that did not become the norm, because like it's just irritating.
Well,
and also having to change CDs so much.
That and nowadays it's probably just as easy to animate the cut scenes with the character as is, rather than, because like in the Dark Forces games, Jedi Knight games that Lucasfilms did.
Yeah, I vaguely remember Dark Forces. Yeah,
Dark Forces is great because it's got its own little piece of history. It's the first person shooter game where you could look up and down.
Okay, I mean that's a big development. Looking up is a big development.
Yeah, it was always just left and right. But they would, you know, the later Jedi Knight games would have these cutscenes, and it was just always really jarring to go from, all right, we've got this like really pixelated 1990s kind of thing where you're running around and everything is really blocky, and then suddenly you're seeing a video, but also the video is not well. It's like, you know, a 240p video that's been stretched out over your computer screen. Of course, the old computer screens too, the old CRTs that look like shit anyway.
Yeah, because they're square. Yeah. Well, wasn't there a thing with like Command and Conquer had some stuff like that with really bad FMV? Like it hasn't aged well.
With really good one, because it had what's his name? It had Tim Curry.
Tim Curry, yeah.
Going to space with doing space communism.
Yeah, I'm thinking back on it now. I mean, like there were a lot of I mean, at that age, having a computer kind of was the replacement because we didn't have a video game system for a while, and then I think my parents eventually relented and let me get a Super Nintendo because we had a Super Nintendo in Germany, and then the movers stole it, and so my parents were like, "Well, we never liked video games anyway." But you can't give it to a bunch of kids and be like, "Oh yeah, it's normal to have video games." And they'd be like, "Actually, no, you'll never have video games ever again."
I didn't have a video game console until I went to Afghanistan and bought my own PS2, which was always weird because my parents were like, we don't want you, rotting your mind with video games, which was fine. But there was always an updated computer in the house that I could play all my X-Wing games on.
Mm-hmm.
I could play all, because I moved out 2001, so like all my gaming at my parents' house was in the 90s, and then in Afghanistan, I ordered a PS2 to send out to me for my own birthday. So my parents didn't. My father was very tech savvy. He's not anymore because he's 80 and he doesn't have to be. But once upon a time, he was an engineer. We always had an updated laptop in the house. My wife was the same way. We both grew up in houses that always had computers and always had internet. As soon as internet was available, we were online. For fucking better or worse. But yeah, the video game console thing, my parents were never all about it, although they did buy me one of the old blocky Game Boys at one point for my birthday. That old brick. Yeah. And I tell you, so we do our science center has a thing every first Friday where they're open late and they play movies on the OmniMax, and it's always themed. So our last theme that we did was I Love the 2000s, and I've never felt more old in my entire life than walking around this place with my daughter, and they had this makerspace area, and they had a couple people set up there, and they're like, yeah, we're talking about how video games look now and how they looked in the 2000s. So they're like, here's this Nintendo Switch, and it's got the most updated, most recent Pokemon on it. And then we've got this Nintendo DS, and the guy's like, now this is what I grew up playing Pokemon on, and I was almost dented his head with it. And then they move on. It's like, and then you can see the controllers. So they show you the the current gamepad controller for the Switch, which looks kind of like an Xbox. And they're like, back in our day, we had to play with this Wiimote. I'm like, I swear to God, you children.
Yeah, I mean, I bought
unbidden from my mouth. Nate came back in my day, and I almost killed myself in that moment. Just throw myself off the second story, crash into the science experiments going on below, and ended it all there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking back to so I'm a little too young for Atari because the sort of great video game boom and bust of the early 80s would have happened around the time that my brother was a newborn, my older brother. So many people don't know this, but video games became so unprofitable with the kind of collapse of Atari that the reason why they marketed Nintendo in America as a Nintendo Entertainment System was because video game system was so unpopular with retailers because they're like, we don't make any money off these. No one buys these anymore. Mm-hmm. Because Atari famously had this glut of terrible games and so on and so forth.
That shit was expensive too.
Yeah, it was.
Nintendo cartridges were like $100 in 1990s dollars.
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember them being that much until towards the very end, but I can remember in the early 90s that new games were like $60, $70.
Right.
Because they were also expensive for Super Nintendo, but the prices, you'd see some discounted NES games for $20, $30, but the normal price was at least $60 in 1990s dollars. That's a lot of money.
Which always kills me every time I see people complain about how much video games cost now. I don't think you understand that
they were
Legend
a lot
of
more,
Zelda, that gold NES cartridge, that gold leaf cartridge itself was $10 more than everything else to play.
I had one of the originals as a kid, and if you could get your hands on an original, enjoy it, but you can't really use it because the battery has long since died and will not save your games because we didn't have memory cards. They had to be built into the cartridge itself. So my brother got as a gift for some scholastic achievement that I can't recall when we lived in Rhode Island the year I turned 5. So my brother got an original Nintendo. So this would have been 1989. And I think a lot of kids of our generation, we just fell off completely being into playing Nintendo. And my parents basically decided that they were going to get rid of it when we moved to Germany. And so their sort of compromise position was, we're going to sell it and you guys can get Game Boys. Now, my brother already had a Game Boy. I didn't have one. Classic older sibling move of you get a Game Boy for Christmas and your little brother is never allowed to play it ever. Not on Christmas Day, not after, not when you're asleep, not ever. I think I went a fucking month before I was able to play. I just got to watch him play Super Mario Land and could never actually play it because that's just older sibling stuff. Those of you who don't have siblings, you don't know. Francis is like, I know exactly what this is.
My siblings are all too far away from me. Like my closest sibling is 11 years older than me, so we weren't close enough in age for them to be mean to me.
My brother is 2.5 years older than me, so yeah, absolutely, yeah. And so, but we had the Nintendo and like that, like age 5, you know. There are some benefits to it. I mean, I think with hand-eye coordination, learning to like being more engaged with learning to read because you want to read the dialogue stuff in video games. Like I think it did help. But we had. I mean, I look back on it like, what was I really into? And it's, I don't know, the Mega Man games, Mega Man 2, Legend of Zelda, Castlevania, the Ninja Turtles game, Contra, the Ninja Turtles game that was fucking hard as hell.
Yeah,
the TMNT game. Yeah.
With the water level and everything. Yeah.
Yeah, just insanely challenging. But like, so for me, DuckTales, I was joking with Cynthia the other day, trying to play Stevie Wonder on the piano using the voice on my piano that sounds like a clavinet. And it's like, you got to get the timing right to make it sound like Stevie Wonder, because if you get too just fucking like on the one rhythmic with it, like without there being any kind of swing or feel to it, it just starts sounding like the NES DuckTales theme music. That is still a banger, don't get me wrong, but
they re-released that. You can get that on Steam now. I think they redid that like sometime in the last 10 years, and I picked it up and immediately was just like, God, video games are too hard back in the day.
Yeah, I mean, Mega Man 2 was hard as hell, but I know the game well enough from playing it as a kid and can literally... it had, to our ears, it had really good music for a video game. I literally, if I don't want to embarrass myself or you, but I could absolutely hum from memory the song to, for example, the Dr. Wily stage at the end of the game. Like, it's just got for video games, really good music.
Mm-hmm.
Mega Man 2, great soundtrack. I was actually joking with Milo the other day about problems at the studio where, like, as soon as the sun goes down, like, we start having fucking issues with people trying to break in and take trash behind the building. And I was like, you might as well just have a little title card that appears that says, "What a horrible night to have a curse." And he had no fucking clue at all. Of course he did. He was born in 1993. Why would he? You know what I mean? But yeah, it's funny when you think about how much that stuff, like being the age that we are, we're just old enough to have been like on the younger side of kids playing in that sort of first wave post Atari of like video games being a really big deal in sort of like kid and youth culture in America.
Yeah. And you know, they're making a lot of movies and TV shows based on video games. Peacock recently released one based on Twisted Metal, and it's really good. And
really?
But it's really good. It's got Anthony Mackie. It's got
bringing back together the cast of the Hurt Locker to do a Twisted Metal game.
God, if only they got Jake Gyllenhaal.
Well, Jake Gyllenhaal. It was Jeremy Renner. Jake Gyllenhaal is, you're thinking of Jarhead.
Yeah, I'm thinking Jarhead. Hurt Locker was Jeremy Renner. Yeah, I can't. I'm getting my terrible fucking Iraq movies mixed up. The great thing that they have in Twisted Metal 1, Sweet Tooth is played by 2 people. They have Samoa Joe playing the actual physical body of Sweet Tooth, but then they have Will Arnett doing the voice. So you've got Will Arnett, who played Job and played Lego Batman. He's got a great voice for it. You got Anthony Mackie. You've got, if you ever watch Brooklyn Nine-Nine, I can't remember the name of the actress, but the like kind of no-nonsense Hispanic woman, Samantha Beatriz, I think is the actress's name, but she's in it too. But like, also, Twisted Metal is not a game that's been relevant for like more than a decade. Now, it's a cool idea because it's cars with guns shooting each other. It's an awesome game, but
it speaks to the most American of impulses, killing someone with a gun while in your car.
Right. But, like, in 1993, we started with Carmageddon, where the whole idea was running over.
That early? I played Carmageddon, like maybe it was a reboot of it. I played Carmageddon on in 98, 99 on PC, like in the era of like the first like graphics card add-on to your computer on top of like what's on the motherboard.
Okay, you're right. 1997 was Carmageddon.
Because Twisted Metal was what, 95 or 96? Because I remember playing. It was on the original PlayStation. I remember playing it back in those days.
The first one was, and they had Twisted Metal. I played a lot of Twisted Metal 2, and then Twisted Metal Black came out, and that wasn't all that good. They've tried to reboot the series once or twice, but like I guess people just aren't into cars with machine guns shooting each other anymore, even though we have Mario Kart.
I was gonna say, but Mario Kart speaks to the urge in a more sanitized way. Like the American spirit is able to express itself in a way that's a little bit cutesy, and so people don't feel guilty about it. Whereas Twisted Metal probably gets closer to what's actually in our hearts, that like what we want is for life to be a demolition derby, but also you have guns. Which is why I don't
understand why it hasn't had a really successful reboot since then, because if there's anything that people love, it's a battle royale in a massive city with a whole bunch of people killing each other. What about, instead of, having goofy Fortnite guns and building towers in the middle of nowhere, what if you just had machine guns on cars shooting each other? That's a prospect that I enjoy. But the Twisted Metal TV show is good. I think that they did really well with it. It's one of the few video game adaptations that is really well. I just don't know who it's for other than me. Like, it's for me, it's for other old people who really love technicals, but apparently enough people liked it that they're going to make a second season of it. And like I said, they got Anthony Mackie to play the
actual
main character.
Established actor. I mean, it's odd to me, I guess, when you think about some of these. I can remember, I won't go into total detail of all my sort of video game history, but like basically we got a Super Nintendo not too long after they came out, or maybe like 2 years after they came out, because my brother, for his, I want to say 11th birthday. And then a few months later, we moved back from Germany to America, and all of our shit got stolen, all of our electronics. Mm-hmm. So I didn't get another N64 or Nintendo until much later. I saved up some of my allowance, and my parents finally were like, okay, give us the cash you've got and we'll cover the rest. Because that's what I used to do. My parents would give us $5 a week, and I would literally put the $5 in cash in a little tin in my room, and I would save up $60 or $70, and then go with my mom, go and buy like, I don't know, Mega Man 3 or something at the PX.
Thank God my daughter uses her allowance to buy books.
Yeah, well, I mean,
she hasn't been cursed by the gamer curse yet.
But also, like, in retrospect, dude, I'm trying to think of like what would have been on sale, and that's the thing back in those days, is that like at the PX there wouldn't have been books that would have appealed to like kids my age.
No, absolutely not.
They would have either been little kid books, or they would have been like books for Joe. You know what I mean? Like, not Joe Kasabian, but like soldiers. Like it just, the stuff wasn't that well stocked, and like that is a niche market of, call it middle to late childhood. Like that wasn't as stuff like that. It was available, but it certainly wouldn't have been available at a military post exchange in West Germany. You know what I mean?
Right. They weren't exactly stocking Redwall books and. Well,
no, when we got those, that was like, I think my parents got those as like mail order from America, like to their APO post box, because they didn't sell them. I don't really remember, but yeah, like so I can recall playing like the Super Nintendo Zelda, what is it? The Link to the Past. The early Super Nintendo games, Super Mario World, stuff like that. Anyway, I definitely would say though that for some reason, like right around the age of, right around not kind of where your daughter's at, maybe a little older, was when it really just kind of clicked with me for some reason. Like I'd say from 9 to 12, yeah, video games and specifically RPGs were like the thing that I was really like, if I had a thing I was into, besides like, I kind of liked Cub Scouts. I liked, going hiking, riding my bike, going to the pool. I thought rock tumblers and polished rocks were the coolest thing on the planet. You could have like really smooth rocks.
Yeah.
But other than like the thing, what was I into? Like what was like the thing that like got me excited about like, oh, I could do X, Y, and Z thing in the future? It was definitely video games. And when I think back on it, it was like Mega Man X, Final Fantasy IV, and stuff in that vein, like Final Fantasy VI, or I guess, yeah, fucking whatever they called it in America, 3, all that stuff. So yeah, like I was on my way to being a huge dweeb. I just also got into skateboarding and then doing sports in high school, middle school and high school. That's, I suppose, the one thing that saved me from being a gamer, was that I eventually became, swimming took up basically my entire life. Mm-hmm. Swimming was the podcasting of me being a teenager in terms of having no fucking free time. Yeah, but it didn't pay. I had to pay to do it, actually.
Yeah. I feel like my daughter, like the first thing, like this morning, I get her breakfast ready, and she comes out and she picks up her Kindle and she reads. Like her Kindle is like the thing that she always has to have on her so that she can always be reading something. And So she's going to be a huge dweeb in a completely different way, but she's that kind of kid that loves going to the library. Doesn't really understand most video games. Like, she wants to get into Roblox, and I'm not against it. Like, I'm not against Minecraft. Like, yeah, play Minecraft. But she played Minecraft for a little bit on the peaceful mode, because she didn't want to get blown up by creepers and stuff. But she's way more into. And look, if I let her sit down with the Switch, she would sit down with the Switch all day. But she's really into books. She always goes for the book first. So she's going to be, hopefully that dweebiness continues on.
We have some friends who are a military family in Buckinghamshire, basically, because there's bases outside of London, like Air Force bases, and they have a 6-year-old, so now 7-year-old son. And we when they were doing like some events in London, like we took care of him. And he likes spending time with our daughter. So he's a very fun kid to babysit, very easy to babysit. But he plays Roblox. Yeah. And so I got to watch him, and he explained Roblox to me, and he kind of talked me through it. And, we sort of played together where he was doing the controlling, but I was sort of pointing stuff out. And what I'd say about Roblox is that, like, it definitely seems like it's fun and interesting. The chat stuff was a little bit shady. Like, everything from, like, people being, like, not like predatory in a sexual way, but like making sex jokes as like kids might, or like little, young teens might, and like racist shit and fucking lots of racist stuff in languages that aren't English. Now, this was just one glimpse, but I do speak French. I do speak Spanish. I can understand a little bit of Italian because of Romance languages. And similarly with Dutch, it's close to German. I can speak German okay. Yeah, and I know some fucking slurs when I see them, and I'm just really glad this little boy wasn't yet at the point of reading where he could understand any of that, because for him it was blissful. But the thing that I found interesting about Roblox were all of the songs that the kids are really into that are about Roblox, that are like very professionally composed, arranged, etc. Like, they sound like pop songs on the radio, but they're basically like songs in the kind of like somewhere in the Bruno Mars / Pharrell Williams style of pop music, but explicitly about Roblox, and they're meant to attract, like, kids listen to them because they're songs about like this level of Roblox or some shit. And so this boy was like, he asked me to like play them and then figure out the songs on the piano. So that was another way I kept him entertained, was he'd pick a song and then we'd play it and I'd listen by ear and I start figuring it. They're all very simple. And I was like, if these songs actually make money, you must be making a fucking killing off this, because these aren't hard to write. And you just sing about goddamn video game levels. Like, I can get into that mentality. Maybe that's the future right there. You just become the prince of Roblox songs.
Yeah, you're gonna quit podcasting and just make Roblox music. Look, my daughter got, for about 2 weeks, was really into Pokemon rap battles, and that was a brain grating time to be in the house.
I was thinking about this recently, about brain grating thing, was when the Simpsons movie came out and the ad was on TV where Homer was like, Spider Pig, doing whatever a Spider Pig does. And every single person who had a kid between the age of like 5 and 9 would be like, no, fucking turn the TV off. If he hears or she hears it again, she's going to do it for like a month. No, fuck that. Like,
the original Baby Shark, man.
There's just things that kids glom onto that are just so annoying. And like, yeah. I know I got that in store for me.
I mean, it's not any worse than every 20-year-old in the early aughts constantly quoting Borat or quoting Wedding Crashers or something. At least Spider Pig has a tune to it, I guess.
I mean, I was thinking about it for like, I remember at our OTC department, the secretary, her son was around the building a lot, and he would have been about 8 or 9 when I started school, so probably about 12 by the time that I graduated. And I remember like he was really into quotes from like bench warmers and movies like that are obvious kid movies, but have like no well-known actors and stuff like that in them and things like that. I don't know. Maybe it was slightly less annoying. If my young teens were fucking quoting Borat, I'd be like, why are you watching that movie? That's bad. But then again, I also got to watch R-rated movies when I was 11, and I thought it was the most badass thing in the world. I mean, I mentioned this recently to a friend. I was just like, all I remember of watching Terminator 2 when I was 11 was that it was cool. It was cool that I got to see an R-rated movie, and the liquid metal was cool. I didn't even care that there were boobs. Who cares? I just cared about, I'm a grown up. I'm badass. I get to see a movie where they say the F word. Like, that's like being 11 in my mind, at least.
Yeah, but also rating systems were real fucked back in the day too.
Yeah, they were. You could always say fuck once in a PG-13 movie. So like, when are they going to use the judicious fuck? You know, like, but you could have sex, but it couldn't be graphic. But like, how do you define graphic? You know,
what was Jurassic Park rated?
I think it was PG. I don't think it was PG-13. It might have been PG-13 though. I don't remember. What I do remember is Spaceballs is PG and they say fuck in Spaceballs. But in 1985 or whenever that movie, 87, 89, that was just different. It was always so subjective. It got weirder in the 90s, I think, because America got like more reactionary in some ways in the 90s.
Okay, no, Jurassic Park was PG-13.
It was PG-13? Okay, yeah. I saw it in theaters, but like obviously like it's not like, I went to the theater on my own. Like I was 8, my mom took me, obviously.
It was like a YMCA camp or something, and they took us to go see Jurassic Park. I think I was 10, but I had already seen the movie, so my parents were like, "Yeah, go watch Jurassic Park." However, I was not able to watch Air Force One with my cousins because that was an R-rated.
That was an R-rated movie. Yeah, I remember a very funny thread early days on forums of people doing Photoshop. They were like, Photoshop the poster of a movie to reflect what your impression of it was as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And so the person did Jurassic Park, and in the Jurassic Park font wrote, "A man gets killed sitting on the toilet."
Yes.
And then
a lawyer gets when you get older, then it gets better because the lawyer gets killed sitting on the toilet.
And then what's it called for Goodfellas? They got the Goodfellas font and it just said swearing, which 1,000,000,000,000,000% yes.
Ours is finally she was really stuck on not watching new movies, and she's finally opening herself up to watching new movies now, and it's good because we actually were just in Disneyland and Universal in California, so she's really up on watching stuff. I really wanted to get her to watch the original Shrek. Like I have a powerful need for my daughter to start down the Shrek timeline of like, so I can lean in and be like, Lord Farquaad means Lord Fuckwad.
You really need your daughter to have an important experience of growing up in the United States that you shared with her, which is you watch a movie and you like, and the movie basically opens up with, "Somebody once told me the world is gonna roll." Yeah. Yes. All-star features heavily in that movie. But also so does songs by Eels, which is just a strange combination in my mind. That one, because I knew them before as a band, like, that's an odd one. You know what I mean? Like,
Shrek was like, I don't think people understand that Shrek was so wild for the time that it came out. Because...
Oh, yeah. No, well, my friends and I saw it in theaters when we were 16, like twice, because there was like so many jokes that were obviously intended to make the grown-ups laugh. That idyllic summer right before 9/11.
Yeah.
That's what I was doing. I was going on.
Last time we felt innocence was watching Shrek and making Lord Fuckwad jokes.
I don't even think I dawned on me that it was supposed to be Lord Fuckwad, but I mean, yeah.
I picked that one up immediately. I think fuckwad was one of my favorite insults.
But I still, even though that the movie and the franchise and everything is annoying, all I can say is the interrogation of the gingerbread man and like, do you know the muffin man, like that always makes me laugh.
Yeah.
Genuinely, I'm so middlebrow, low culture, doesn't matter. That bad movie and it's annoying, but like as far as kids movies go, there are far more annoying movies out there, and I don't know. There is a certain...
They're pretty good now, but there are definitely still a lot of stinkers that come out. Sometimes Disney forgets that like adults are going to have to watch this shit too, so they kind of make it more, and then it's not as because I feel like you have to get the parents in, because if you're going to make a movie and you're like, all right, my kid is going to watch this 700 times in the next 6 months, I need to be entertained by it too. And the one that we're cool with, like we watch Cars. My daughter used to love Cars, and that's a great film. Good Disney movie. The sequels or whatever, but it's got a lot of jokes for adults in it. There's one of my favorite jokes in it is Lightning McQueen comes around and is like, "Oh my God, did you know that Doc is a famous race car? He's won 3 piston cups." And Larry the Cable Guy's Mater is just like, "He did what in his cup?" And that always gets me.
Much like Cars going too fast is funny, sometimes like ridiculous localization in a foreign language that you understand can also be really funny. Or I think my best example of this before we go to Ask a Dad is when I studied abroad when I was a teenager. It was 2002. So my host brother was 12. I was 17. And so there were lots of movies he wanted. Imagine what a 12-year-old would want to watch on like VHS. And so we watched like the first Harry Potter movie. I've only ever seen it in French. But also we watched Men in Black, which fun movie, great movie. Sure. I think once kids get to a certain age, that's extremely appropriate. It's fun, great movie.
Yeah.
However, I've seen Men in Black enough times that I remember not just the lines, but the delivery. I remember how Will Smith says stuff. You know what I mean? And so you remember the scene in Men in Black when he's chasing the alien through New York and he jumps onto the tour bus? He
Yeah.
lands on the upper deck of the tour bus and he's like, "That's right, folks. It's just rain. Welcome to New York. It's just raining black people here." Anyway, but he's saying it with like attitude. Now,
Right.
I don't know if I'm exaggerating this in my memory. Maybe I'm doing the French voice actor dirty here. But I swear to fucking God, even though the line is pretty much word for word translated, in the French version of it, he lands on the bus. He's like, "Ah oui, c'est vrai, il pleut des blacks à New York," and it's just like, that's not how Will Smith. That's not how Will Smith sounds. He sounds cool. He sounds tough. What the fuck are you saying? Yeah.
Oh, we should watch Independence Day in French so we can see
I mean,
how
you know that
Welcome
my
to Earth.
daughter is gonna grow up bilingual, and French is gonna be her primary language by the time that once we move.
Yeah.
So like, I'm gonna be encountering this stuff so much if she prefers to watch something in French versus English. If it's something that I know, man, we're gonna have podcast content for like a decade. Just be like, wow, foreign languages are different. Did you know that?
Yeah. I barely speak English, so that's all going to be on you. Although my wife and daughter want to start learning Latin on Duolingo, which I know.
Look, it can be useful, but it's not really a language that you use in terms of speaking and communicating. It's more that like it
Right.
is helpful for learning other languages and also like English etymology, but
Right. I have a Hispanic family that lives across the alley from me that like the kids all speak English pretty well. The dad seems to English is very much a second language. But I talk to him all the time because he's got 3 dogs, and every once in a while they get out and I help round them up for him. So I need to learn a useful language. And I don't know about Latin, but I mean,
Spanish
look,
is probably the easiest language for an English speaker to learn, I'd say.
I went to Catholic school, man. I don't need more Latin in my fucking life. Like I don't don't need that shit. All right, are you ready to do Ask a Dad?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So what's a good gift for new parents? You are still a fairly new parent, 8 months old. So we're going to put you in that new parent kind of thing. I know when your daughter was born, you sent me the Amazon wish list you had, and my wife said, no, send them, money for Grubhub or whatever they have there in England. So, but as still a fresh parent, what's something that if somebody was like, I've got, I want to get you something, what's something that would be really helpful?
I mean, I would definitely say that some kind of voucher or thing for ordering food, because it can be a lifesaver when you're really slammed. I would say baby essentials things, but the thing about this is that sizes are always variable, and so something that some people
and
did
what
for
a
us,
baby likes is very variable too. Like it's hard. I wouldn't be like, hey, I'm going to go out and buy some bottles for your daughter, because there are different ones, and sometimes babies like some more than others.
I would say one thing that I find interesting that I think is actually really helpful is if people get you baby clothes in a size slightly larger, because lots of people are going to get you newborn clothes, but newborn clothes may not fit. But like some of the gifts we really appreciated were like people who got us stuff like toys for her and stuff in the 3 to 6 month range. Obviously she can't use it right off the bat, but she will in the future. And so she made use of those. And it's like, you go through newborn clothes so fast.
Yeah.
If you have the ability to just do stuff like bringing food by, helping with chores, helping stuff like, for example, take stuff to the dump, to the recycle center, like help people get things done where like you can, like, even if in America it feels like basically like it's far more sort of the rule that you have to have a car than it is here. But like, even if everyone involved has a car except for the baby, being willing to like, hey, I'll go and pick stuff up for you, or I'll take stuff to the dump for you, just handling things like that.
Right.
Those are so helpful, honestly, because one of the things you learn when you have a new baby is how much shit you've got that you don't need and you need to get rid of.
Mm-hmm.
Or as you work through baby stuff, you realize this stuff can't be used anymore. She's outgrown it, etc. You got to either give it away or recycle it or whatever. And that's another trip. That's another thing. Like just helping with that. Even stuff like just coming over and helping with the baby if people are in a position to have guests, to like, so they can do stuff like rest or clean or do shit on their own, but just like someone's with the baby that's not their partner. You know what I mean? Those things, they help so much.
I guarantee if we were in England, or if you were here back in the Midwest in St. Louis, we'd be telling you to bring your daughter over. Like, no, bring the kid over, drop her off. She can, my daughter would love to have a baby to play with, and I got cats that are all like really chill, and the baby can come and like kind of pull on their tails and stuff like that. And I got a really big fluffy dog that's super friendly. So I have a sensory playground for babies, and it would just be easily bring the baby over, drop off a bottle and some diapers, and go fuck off and do whatever you need to do for 2 hours or so. I can keep a baby entertained, because when you get to my age, when you get to having a daughter, as I do, that's at her age, 8 or 9, you kind of miss that. But also, I don't want another baby. Mm-hmm. So like, I don't want a full-time baby that I have to worry about. I would love once a week if I could have 2 hours with a baby, hang out, play with the baby, and then be like, all right, here you go.
Here you go. I mean, to be honest with you, I think when I was younger, I thought I would have wanted to have like a really big family. I don't know if we're going to have any more kids or adopt or anything like that. But to be honest with you, if we did, 2 would be the absolute maximum. Whereas when I was younger, I thought I'd be like, oh, maybe we're going to have like 5 kids. Or like, no.
Well, no. And also we're old. Like,
yeah, we're both, Cynthia and I are too old for that. But also, like, even if I was in my fucking 20s, dude, like, geez, this is so much.
Beth and I have talked about it, and if we had gotten together like much earlier and done family planning much earlier, we probably would have had maybe 2 or 3. But our daughter was born when my wife was in her late 30s, and that's that's dangerous enough. Like, it's not. We have good insurance. We live in America. I'm sure we would be perfectly fine, but it's still, my back hurts right now. Like, I can't deal with having another baby. So that's why I went out and got that mold broken, got a vasectomy. So no more of that from me.
Well, all I can say is I am very grateful for all of the people who helped out. And even if it's not a material thing, helping out, like, in some small way made a huge, huge difference. So, if you can give people gifts like that, I think it'll be really, really heartfelt and really, really special to them. So that's what I recommend. But obviously, like, if people do wish lists and registries and stuff, that's also really good, because like they've already picked out the thing that they want. So it's like, it's better than you do taking your best guess and maybe getting it wrong. And then you have an additional thing that can't be used and it's taking up space.
Yeah. Don't try to get fancy with new parents. Like, I know exactly what new parents want. Just grab these new parents. Like, what can I do for you? What do you want? What will make your life easier right now? Because that's going to be the best way to understand what somebody needs going forward. So although again, food vouchers, always a hit, just saying, hey, look, have something delivered to your house because everything's empty and the refrigerator's empty, the cupboard is empty, and nobody wants to fucking leave the house, or everybody's sick. Like, God, every time we have friends here who have a new baby, and it seems like they've been every 2 months been rotating some kind of illness around the entire family. And every time that happens, we try to kick them, like, here's $50, buy yourself some, I don't know, Deliveroo or whatever the hell it is that you guys got. This has been a great conversation. Love having you back on the show. Recently, some of our stuff that we've released, I have a dad chat with Chris James from the Guys podcast that was released last week. And we have our Predator episode on Patreon at $5 and up. So the Zoo Crew watched Predator, a movie that I had never actually seen. I don't think Joe had seen it either. So we got to watch roided out professional wrestlers do roided out professional wrestler stuff in the jungle and kill a massive predator alien too. But everybody, thank you so much for listening. You can find all of that stuff in our links down below. If you sign up for the Patreon, you get access to nearly, almost at this point, 8 years of bonus content. So much bonus content. This has been going on for almost a decade, Nate. I don't know what we're going to do once we hit 10 years, but
10 more years. Just 10 keep more going. Years.
Podcast till we fucking die.
Yep.
As long as people give me $5 a month to do this, I will continue to do this. So it's on you guys, the listeners, to keep this nonsense going. Everybody, thank you so much, Nate. We'll talk to you next week.
Yep. Have a good one.